In this lesson, we'll talk a little bit more about the kinds of files you can work with in ZBrush. So we talked about the canvas a little bit. We talked about the tool palette and our ability to come in, grab a tool, draw it onto the canvas, and it's just part of a composition until we hit T to go to edit mode, and then it's a 3D object which we can move around. So when we want to save this object out, we would save it from the tool palette as a Z tool, okay? And we can have multiple Z tools. For instance, here I'll make this a poly mesh, so we've got this mesh here. Let me just real quickly come in and make some changes to it so it's very apparent that this is a new object here. So if I click on another tool, so I come over here and I click on, let's say, this cylinder, you can see that it's replaced and we're still in edit mode. So now I can work on the cylinder. But the poly mesh, the sphere that I had before, it didn't go away. It's still sitting over here in this bin. And so you can see here, I can select it from there. So I can change Z tools just by clicking them. I can also come in here and it'll be listed in here. You can see it over here on the right side. So even though you maybe have a Z tool that you're working with and you accidentally drop it to the canvas, you can always come in, clear the canvas, and just draw that Z tool back out again, go back to edit mode, and you're off and running once again. You just want to make sure that when you're done with your session, you want to save that, or periodically, just as you would like a scene file, you save out your model. And this will include all the subtools, which we'll talk about later, but basically everything within this model. Okay, that's a Z tool. And you can load Z tools up, you can save them out, and so forth. Now we can also import geometry, so we can import an OBJ file if we have a piece of geometry that we brought over from another application. Now we can also save some different things here. So if we go to document, you can see there's a save and save as. So what this will do is it'll save your ZBrush document. So it's not going to save your 3D model, but it'll save sort of the depth information that you have here, and kind of like you would have dropped it to the canvas, it'll sort of save that. And then you can come in here and add to that, and you can use different brushes when you have something dropped to the canvas. So let me actually grab the eraser brush, and you can see I can just cut through all that depth information and start to work with this as a sort of 2.5D composition rather than a 3D model. Now to clear off the canvas, again, Control N, and then I can select Z tool. Remember, you always have to draw it out onto the canvas and then hit T to go to edit mode if you want to work with it as a Z tool. The Z documents, those are going to allow you to save out images. You could also export just images, a JPEG or whatever you want of whatever it is that you're working on. But again, that's just an image. It's not going to give you the ability to sculpt on your mesh. Okay. Another thing, another type of file that you can work with are Z projects. So if we go to File, we can open or save Z projects, and Z projects will actually contain all of the different tools that you have loaded up. So in this bin, we have the sphere, and then if we went in and got maybe an arrow, converted that, so we have these different tools over here. If we were to just save out a Z tool, it's not going to know anything about any of these other tools. But if we save a project, we'll be able to save all of these. For instance, I can come in here, and you'll notice that what we have here. Okay, so we have the sphere and we have the arrow. If I go into Lightbox, you can see there's a folder for projects and a folder for tools. If I just bring in a tool, I'll double click on the demo soldier and we'll bring him in. You can see that the only thing that's happened is I've loaded up a new Z tool. So we've got the soldier, but we can also go back to our arrows and our sphere if we want to. But if I load up a project, so let's load up this rifle. So I'll just double click on that. It's going to ask you, the project has changed. So we're actually changing the entire project. So now what will happen is, you can see I've got the gun model in here. So it's loaded up as a tool. But if I come in here, my other tools aren't loaded up. Okay, so this Z project has kind of overridden all of that. So it's nice because you can save more things with it. But just think of that as if you have kind of a larger project that you're working with, and you've got special materials and things. And if you're working with just a model, you can save that just as a Z tool, and that's from the tool palette. Okay, the projects can be loaded up from the file palette or from Lightbox in the project folder. and you can load up tools from the tool folder or from the tool palette. Okay, so just keep in mind the distinction between ZTools, ZProjects, and documents. Okay, and then we'll talk later about getting things like turntables and movies and things like that out of ZBrush as well. You can see here in the project folder, we also have sort of example projects that'll help you learn how to use some of the really cool features here in ZBrush. You can see there's a whole folder for array meshes, for nano meshes. You can kind of load that up and dissect it and see what's actually going on in there. Okay, there's some demo projects that you can load up with ZSketch. There's some animals in there that you can take a look at. So a lot of cool stuff here that's loaded up that will allow you to really explore what you can do in ZBrush. Just keep in mind the difference between working with a Z tool, working with ZProject, and working with a document. Okay, and also the ability to import and export geometry. All that stuff for your Z tools is going to be done in the tool palette. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is let's talk about some of the display options that we have in ZBrush, so ways of looking at our geometry to make things go a little bit easier for us. So we'll talk about that next.